Hey guys,
Hey, Matt.
how we doing?
Yeah, doing well. How you doing?
Yeah, good. I'm good.
Hey, Thomas.
I did see your request on the Java contrib repo, by the way, Mike. I was just making sure that ours is backwards compatible with Java 8 because we bumped it to Java 11. Had to tweak the tests a little bit. So
Got ya. Okay, cool. Yeah, no rush on it. I just didn't want to like slam the merge button until we
yeah,
knew we were good to go. Cool.
nice one. Yeah.
We'll probably want to bump our min version too at some point. It's just like Java 8 has lasted forever, it seems like. So
yeah. It's crazy. You're sounding a little bit robotic, by the way, Mike. I don't know if that's...
Am I? Okay. 1 sec.
Oh, I thought that was just me.
I was wondering, yeah.
No, it's the new form of COVID they get in the US.
I got it. Yeah.
Robot
Remote
COVID.
work.
Yeah, I've heard a
Yeah.
lot about that. Yeah.
All right, I guess that's still a bad joke to do. It hasn't, not enough time has gone by. That's funny.
All right, I missed the joke. And is it better now or no?
The joke is still terrible. The sound is fantastic.
All right, cool. All right, you got to repeat the joke then, and then we can kick this thing off.
I don't think he's gonna do
Okay.
it.
And I think I'm gonna edit out from the recording before I upload it.
What joke did I miss? Can someone repeat it?
No, it's all right. It wasn't funny. That's the
All right, perfect. I did add the notes to the Zoom chat. So yeah, definitely feel free to add some topics. It looks like Todd and I kind of hijacked the list so far. So if you have anything, definitely feel free to add it. And then if you don't mind just adding yourself as a participant, that would be great. And then it looks like we have one new member. So Adam, would you be willing to introduce yourself quickly?
Sure. I wouldn't call me a member. I'm just attending to try and find out what the status is, because my company is considering adopting OpenFeature.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, well, welcome.
Thanks.
All right. Well, hey, Dan. All right. Yeah, I just linked the meeting notes again. Feel free to add yourself. And then looks like Todd is up first. So hand it over to you.
Yeah, just give me 1 second to pull up the notes here. I closed that tab. Okay. Yeah, so I guess the biggest thing I have kind of on my list is I've updated the playground. If you guys remember what that is, it's a big a massive NX repo that we kind of used initially to prove out some of our SDK paradigms. And so I've kind of reused it for similar purposes for the web SDK, which, as I mentioned 2 weeks ago, was published in as an experimental version in NPM. So I have 5 vendors. I have demo providers for 5 vendors available there. What I was doing just before this meeting was basically gonna create like a I just send it an email or something like that, some kind of set of links for various community members from various vendors to take a look at the demo provider for each vendor. But basically, yeah, I have some very rudimentary providers for every vendor, not every vendor, but quite a few vendors who've been involved. So there's a Flagsmith, a Harness, a LaunchDarkly, a Split, and a CloudBees, as well as a FlagD. So it'd be great if kind of representatives from each of those vendors would take a quick look at some of the providers in there that are implemented using the experimental web SDK, because it'll help us continue to vet out how we want that SDK to look. And the SDK that's published right now is basically in sync with the latest draft spec PR, which you can find in the spec repo. Yeah, so take a look at that, and let me know what you think. I'll send out links after the meeting, or maybe just put them in the doc, or a message in Slack or something like that. Actually, maybe that's what I'll do, is I'll kind of ping with direct links to the providers in Slack in the CNCF OpenFeature channel. I think that's really all I wanted to talk about. So I won't demo it or anything. It looks exactly like the old playground, except it's implemented with client-side feature flags instead of everything being evaluated on the server. I think that's it for my update. Does anybody have any questions about that? Cool. Okay, yeah. So my one follow-up is I'll put a big message in the Slack channel, and ping some reps from vendors with specific lines of code they might want to look at. The providers are really basic, but it will, I think, like I said, help us vet the web SDK. Thanks.
All right, cool. Thanks, Todd. I have a couple items real quick. First one is the Google Summer of Code. I signed up as a mentor for that, and have a project proposal around the OFEP process, or the Open Feature Enhancement proposal. So you will potentially see some potential mentees pop into the Slack channel or on GitHub asking various questions. So definitely ask, for everyone to be welcoming, of course, like you would any new person, but especially for these students, because they're just breaking into open source. So just keep that in mind as we get some people to join and ask questions. And I know of at least two potential mentees that are working on the proposal, and likely more, because I've seen quite a bit of interest on the issue itself. So then also related to that, if there's anything that you would like to see on that like OFEP or enhancement proposal process that we could improve, either add it to that issue that we have in the OFEPs, or just let me know and we can go ahead and try to add that to the requirements for the project. So at a high level, basically the idea is to automate parts of that process to make sure that any of these proposals are pushed through at a reasonable pace, and then all of the key pieces are kind of captured and shared at the end. So make it a pretty easy process for everyone, but also like useful at the end. Next one is a website refresh. So I'm working with a designer right now to kind of come up with some mocks for what that could look like. And as part of that is like kind of updating the copy on it, and then also consolidating the docs and the website itself. And so I have like a rough project board in GitHub for that. And so I'll be sharing some of those mockups and some of the draft copy shortly. I have it almost finished, and then we can get some feedback on that, and then go ahead and hopefully roll that out. I don't have a timeline on that right now, but basically as soon as possible, essentially, because I think it's the website could really benefit from a refresh. Any questions on either of those topics before I move on? All right. Next one. This one was kind of a big one. We did set up some user permission automation a couple days ago. So you may have seen like a lot of removal from a group, added to a group, things like that. The idea was to basically kind of make up for a year of manually configuring stuff across like 35 repos or 40 repos or something. So this now is all controlled from a single community repo. You can look in there and see basically like user permissions and who has access to what repos. And that is run automatically when you merge a pull request with a change in there. And it's also running on a schedule. So if certain things are manually modified, it will actually revert it if it's not version controlled there. So just kind of an FYI there. It should make it a little bit easier to get the permissions that you need, and also make it a bit more transparent on like who has what access. And if you did like end up like losing permissions for some reason, it wasn't the intention. So definitely let us know and we can correct that. And then we did break out the Parabolos like code essentially to a separate repo. You can find that under the community tooling repo now, and that just publishes a Docker image that we're using as part of the community like release process. So I think it works pretty nicely, but it was fairly destructive when we ran it. So apologies for the kind of the notification spam. But I think we're in a pretty good spot now to centralize some of these configurations. So yeah, any questions or concerns about that? Next one is KubeCon. I moved this one down so it was kind of in line with what David had here. We do have a Slack channel, so the OpenFeature KubeCon channel. So if you're going to attend, definitely join that channel. I've already posted a few like events and stuff that I've found out about that could be kind of interesting to, get people there, and we can, hang out after the event for a bit and yeah, chat. We also have a 1 hour time slot reserved, so that's part of being like a CNCF sandbox project. We get a 1 hour room, I guess. David has maybe a bit more details, but he did promise us coffee and water if we showed up. So, all the more reason to come. We don't really have anything scheduled for that event. So we can either, like, if there is a topic that we'd like to discuss, let me know, let us know. We can try to make that happen. Otherwise, it may just be a good time to kind of socialize and meet each other, because a lot of us have only met virtually. So we do have that available to us. And there's no, immediate schedule, I guess, defined for topics we want to discuss. And then finally,
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Oh, sorry. I thought you had already gotten to it. Sorry.
No, I just want to mention that too. I did create a project board for kind of GitHub, or excuse me, KubeCon preparation. And so that would include things like, PowerPoint deck for the booth, a demo for the booth, a few other things. So if you're interested in that, or need something or want something, feel free to, add something to the project board or ping me and I can go ahead and add it. And we're kind of just chipping away at those ones as we get closer to the event. So that is basically it for me. Any questions on any of those topics? Cool, that was easy. All right. Just a reminder, I'll link it one more time in here. If anyone has any agenda items, feel free to add them. Otherwise, it's over to David.
Yeah, sorry about that. I must be pretty bad at reading the agenda because I totally did not see the KubeCon topic. Otherwise, I would have just added some stuff there. Maybe, yeah, some details on why we didn't schedule any specific topics for the project meeting. So the fact is we have a room that can hold a maximum of 20 people. So we haven't been pushing it as a like, hey, come to our project meeting. For the simple fact that, if the space is that limited, and I think there are already, at least 10, 15 people probably from the project that will be there. So we can then, push it and share it if everyone agrees to that. That's also fine. Yeah. And then for the kiosk, I added in the KubeCon channel a small poll to see like who would be possibly available to be at the to be there. I added like rough times. It doesn't mean you have to be there the whole time. It's just to kind of have some changeover to talk about the project, especially on the Wednesday, I think. Yeah, the Wednesday, because it's quite a long day. There's also the cube crawl. So basically the exposition area will be open until 9 p.m. Like, I don't think anyone will stay at their booth until 9 p.m. But yeah, just that way we have some extra coverage and it's not too hard on whoever's there. Yeah, and then I added there at the end, yes, we did it. There will be swag. So this will be our third edition of OpenFeature swag. Yeah, and then we'll do our best to try and keep some and maybe get some out to those that can't be there. And actually, seeing as I'm not sure if anyone here is an ambassador or made it into the CNCF ambassador, so maybe we could have more than just water and coffee at our project meeting and use that CNCF budget.
Is that how that works? Does CNCF ambassadors get budget for drinks or something?
We get 150 euros a month for meetups and anything that's, let's say, one donut. Yeah. For anything around the cloud native, we can kind of use that budget and expense it. So maybe we can have pizza. No, just kidding. Yeah, that's that's all on my side. If you have any questions for other stuff around KubeCon, just let me know. Or if you haven't joined the KubeCon channel yet, I think have grabbed the chance to do so. Also post a link to a very nice website that some great people have set up called Conference Parties, which basically lists all the after parties at any open source event or DevOps event or pretty much any event out there. So like, you know, you want to go to the Dell breakfast, you can go there, and the Heineken experience and all these things. It's all in there.
All right. Yeah, good to know. So perfect. Yeah, if anyone else has anything to add, please do. Otherwise, I have a couple other things that aren't on the agenda, but I would like to maybe highlight. There was a proposal by Justin actually for basically supporting multiple providers. That's something that I think it's worth exploring. But from my perspective, at least, I'm not going to have a ton of cycles for it until probably after KubeCon. But I really do think it's an interesting area and something that we may want to keep trying to get feedback, and then maybe it's something we could tackle like immediately, post KubeCon if it's something that we agree to. But I don't know, Justin, if you have any thoughts on that. Not to put you on the spot, but you did open the issue. Your audio is not working, at least not for me.
All right, that should be better. The issue's open, and so
Yep.
if it sits there until KubeCon's over, then it does. That's fine. It's open source. Things don't happen very fast.
Yeah, working at the speed of open source.
Would it just be like a user land thing? It would be like a extra contribute, like just an extra provider that would wrap other providers, presumably.
Well, there's
No.
two different things that were proposed. One is that proxy provider that we talked about, and that's a user land thing. Nothing needs to happen there. The second one is this registration mechanism where you can have different clients use different providers.
Oh, I think I missed that.
That's especially useful in contexts where you want to have, like, at eBay, we have this config system. And as we begin to migrate people from the config system to an open feature backed by some eBay internal service, like, we basically want to take over that config system access and say, no, you use open feature for that.
Yeah.
And slowly migrate your stuff for you over.
Yeah, we're also thinking like unit tests would be a little easier, things like that, because right now, like the singleton provides some advantages, but also some clear disadvantages. And so this is maybe kind of a nice way to balance the two, where you could leverage the singleton in some cases, and if you need more flexibility, you could basically override it at like the client level. So that was part of the proposal.
Yeah, there's currently some contributors that aren't at the meeting who have also kind of had the exact same internal use cases at their orgs as Justin described. So
yeah,
I think it's not an unusual need, and frankly, it's one that we've kind of targeted as a key use case of OpenFeature to kind of support what's the word, like unification within disparate kind of flag providers, like provide a mechanism to kind of unify those in orgs and do migrations within orgs. So I think it's something that we have to try and support as best as we can with decent ergonomics. Yeah, I like the current proposal. I think I've left comments there. My only suggestion, which I could take or leave at this point, is I think around some of the naming. But I like the idea a lot.
Yeah,
and
so
it's OFEP right now.
I'm sorry, what was that, Pete? I cut you off.
There's an OFEP for.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, if we can link that one, yeah, definitely take a look. Because my only real concern probably is more around like the developer experience, because I think conceptually, like, it makes tons of sense and it should even be relatively easy to implement. It's just, how does it like feel to use? If it, is it confusing? Is it a breaking change? If it is, like, how do we deal with that? Those are kind of the questions that are still outstanding, I would say. And possibly, Justin, if you do have time, if you want to like potentially work on a prototype based on that, would be pretty helpful. But that's up to you.
You want like a prototype, like an example implementation?
Yeah, like maybe just have like a branch in the Java SDK or something that implements this basically, so we can kind of see how it looks and feels.
I honestly think it's not that much code, so I'm happy to do it.
Hopefully not. That would also be kind of an interesting part of it too. If it's a pretty simple change, then it makes it a little even easier to try to implement.
When we talked about when we were talking about the client side SDK, there was this kind of conversation about. I had a few conversations with Todd I know about like the whole singleton thing, and whether you could like what was in a what state lived in a client versus in the kind of the globalton. Whatever happened with that? Did we decide to kind of like punt on that aspect of changing things?
I think one of the biggest pieces. No, go ahead, Todd. Okay, one of the biggest pieces that pushes us away from putting more state into the client is that library authors are going to be generating these clients for use in their like code. And so we don't want them to be responsible, for instance, for which provider gets used.
Yeah.
And so them creating a named client that is then configured by the application author is kind of the direction I was pushing, at least. So
Got it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think the ergonomics of that are pretty clear. The only confusion that has come up a couple times is like kind of like I mentioned before, just to make sure that people, because both me and the other contributor I was mentioning got confused for a second that they were creating kind of like a provider registry, but it's actually a named client really that can be associated with a particular provider is probably a better way to put it. Which I think those ergonomics make sense. We just need to make sure that there's no confusion around that. So I honestly think it's just mostly in how we name the methods and parameters. I think that's really the biggest way to help there. As far as the singleton stuff, Pete, yeah, like there is definitely more global state on the client. I think that's less of an issue on the client for a couple reasons. It's a single user context really, and it is fairly consistent with a lot of the vendor SDKs, which is kind of also why we kind of got funneled into that situation, because we have to support those vendor SDKs. But I think this would also be doable in the client without an issue. The kind of the thing that Justin is proposing. So I don't see it as an issue there. But yeah, there is more global state on the client, and global state is more the implications of global state and you're interacting with global state is definitely something that happens more if you're dealing with the client SDK, at least the experimental one that exists right now.
I just realized that whole paragraph, when you said client, you meant the client SDK, not the client like the OpenFeature client. So now I've got to
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
re-listen to it all in my mind. Got it. Yeah. Okay. Understood. Okay. Yeah, I'm super interested in that in general, because I think the testing use case is probably even more important.
Yeah,
Like
that's even what Todd and I were talking about. It's like even to test like the JavaScript SDK, we had to do a bunch of kind of workarounds essentially to work around the singleton portion, and that's all of a sudden like should be a red flag, I guess, to us. So even if that's the only angle we take, but I do think that there's more use cases that you could leverage. So
if I get a chance, I might try and write up some of the use cases that we should ideally be able to support from a application author's perspective, because I think that's the place where there's like, it's kind of almost the most important is like, how easy is it to test? Like if OpenFeature made it really, really, really straightforward and kind of like ergonomic to test, kind of to do overriding of flags for testing purposes and stuff like that, that would be super valuable, I think, for anyone using feature flags. And I'm not sure how easy it would be today if you're using OpenFeature, like how how much work we'd have to put on an application author if they wanted to do that kind of thing, like just overriding a flag for the duration of a test, or checking that a flag was checked, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I was just having a conversation with a client about it yesterday, so maybe I can regurgitate in my brain some of the stuff that I was saying to them about it.
Okay, I'll take just a note here that you'll try to take a look at it, but I think that would be valuable to take, spend some time thinking about the testing portion of it, because it's obviously like an important part of software now. And if it needs to be pretty simple to write tests if possible.
Yeah,
I know a lot of vendors do like cover that in their documentation, so we can maybe at least kind of look at what some of the other tools kind of recommend doing and seeing if we can come up with some common patterns. Perfect. Anything else? It looks like we're basically through our list. No, okay. Well, sounds good. Yeah, if you need anything, definitely ping us on Slack, or yeah, we'll see you on GitHub. Thanks, everyone. Have a good
Thanks
day.
all.
Thanks.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.